I handed in my resignation after 5 years of building the entire creative department from scratch, and my boss Marcus literally laughed in my face. In front of the whole team. He even made jokes about how I'd never find anything better, and told everyone to give me a round of applause for my dramatic exit. The room was dead silent except for his laughter. Then HR asked to read my resignation email out loud. Marcus was still smiling when Sandra from HR opened her laptop. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. But when she started reading what I'd documented over the past 6 months, every stolen idea, every campaign he claimed as his own, every late-night email proving I'd created the work he presented to the board, his face went white. The room didn't just go silent. You could hear people's breathing stop. I'm Maya Torres, and for 5 years, I lived and breathed Vertex Media, a mid-sized digital marketing agency in Austin that specialized in social media campaigns for tech startups. When I started, the creative department was basically me and a shared Canva account. That's it. 5 years later, we were a team of 15 creative professionals. The whole agency had grown from 12 people to 47 during my time there. I'd built our entire creative process from the ground up, the brainstorming sessions, the approval workflows, the client presentation templates that became industry standard. Our campaigns were getting featured in Adweek. We'd won 2 Webby Awards. Companies were specifically requesting our team for their launches. But here's the thing nobody tells you about building something from nothing: the person who gets credit isn't always the person who did the work. Marcus Reeves was hired as creative director about 3 years into my time there. He came from a big New York agency with an impressive portfolio and even more impressive connections. The CEO, Janet, was thrilled to have someone with his pedigree leading the department. I was introduced as his right-hand person. Which is corporate speak for, she'll do all the actual work while you take credit for it. At first, I didn't mind. Marcus had good ideas, he knew how to talk to clients, and honestly, I was just happy to have someone else in leadership who understood the creative process. I thought we'd be partners. I was so incredibly wrong. It started small. I'd present an idea in our morning meetings, and Marcus would nod along, say something like, "Interesting approach," then present that exact same idea to the client that afternoon as if he'd thought of it overnight. The first few times, I told myself it was collaborative. That's how teams work, right? Ideas bounce around, evolve, become collective property. But then it got worse. I created an entire campaign strategy for a cryptocurrency startup, 3 months of research, consumer testing, a whole visual identity system. I sent Marcus the presentation deck at 11 p.m. on a Thursday because we had the client meeting Friday morning. Friday morning comes, and I'm ready to present. Except Marcus walks into the conference room and says, "Maya's been feeling under the weather, so I'll be handling the presentation today." I wasn't sick. I was sitting right there. He presented my entire strategy, word for word, down to the jokes I'd written in the speaker notes. The client loved it. They signed a $200,000 contract on the spot. And when Janet congratulated the team afterward, she shook Marcus's hand and said, "This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we hired you for." I waited for him to correct her. To say, "Actually, Maya developed this entire concept." He just smiled and said, "Thanks, I've been working on this approach for a while." That's when I realized this wasn't collaboration. This was theft. The breaking point came 6 months ago during our biggest pitch of the year. TechFlow Industries, a massive B2B software company, was looking to completely rebrand and launch a new product line. This wasn't just big for Vertex Media. This was the kind of client that could put us on the map nationally. We're talking a potential $2 million annual contract. Janet pulled me into her office and told me this pitch had to be perfect. "Marcus will be leading the presentation, obviously, but I need your best work on this, Maya. Everything you've got." So I gave them everything. I spent 3 weeks barely sleeping. I did competitive analysis on 15 different companies. I created 4 completely different campaign concepts, each with full visual mock-ups, sample content calendars, projected ROI calculations, even mock social media posts to show what the rollout would look like. I sent the complete presentation to Marcus on a Sunday night, 127 slides, every detail planned out. The pitch meeting was Wednesday morning. Tuesday night, Marcus called me at 9 p.m. "Hey Maya, I need you to sit this one out tomorrow." I literally stopped breathing. "What?" "Janet thinks too many people in the room might overwhelm the client. It's going to be me, Janet, and Greg from sales. But don't worry, I'll make sure you get credit for your contributions." Contributions. Like I'd brought cookies to someone else's bake sale. "Marcus, I built that entire pitch deck. Every single slide. And it's great work." "Really? But this is a C-suite meeting, and we need to present a unified leadership front. You understand." I didn't understand. But I also didn't have a choice. Wednesday morning, I sat at my desk while Marcus, Janet, and Greg went to the conference room. I watched through the glass walls as Marcus presented my work, my research, my concepts, my strategies, to 5 executives from TechFlow. They loved it. I could see them nodding, leaning forward, asking questions. Marcus was animated, confident, pointing at slides I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. perfecting. 2 hours later, they came out. Janet was beaming. Greg was already talking about commission structures. And Marcus walked right past my desk without making eye contact. That afternoon, Janet called an all-hands meeting. The entire agency, about 40 people, crammed into our main conference room. "I have incredible news," Janet announced, practically glowing. "We just signed TechFlow Industries. This is the biggest client in Vertex media history." Everyone erupted in applause. People were hugging, high-fiving, already planning the celebration happy hour. And I want to personally thank Marcus Reeves for his visionary creative work on this pitch. "Marcus, this campaign concept is exactly why we brought you on board. You've elevated this entire agency." More applause. Marcus stood up, did a little humble bow, soaking it all in. Not once did my name come up. I sat there, clapping along with everyone else like a trained seal, while the man who'd stolen 3 weeks of my life got a standing ovation. That night, I went home and cried for 2 hours straight. Then I stopped crying, opened my laptop, and started documenting everything. Every email. Every file with timestamps. Every original draft with my name in the metadata. Every Slack message where I'd sent ideas that later became Marcus's campaigns. Every client win that I'd actually created. I spent 6 months building an airtight case. Not because I was planning some big revenge scheme, but because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That I had actually done the work. That my career wasn't just a fever dream. And then, 2 weeks ago, something inside me finally broke. I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep watching someone else live my professional life while I stayed invisible. So I wrote my resignation letter. And I made sure it was thorough. The Monday after the TechFlow celebration, I asked Marcus if we could talk privately. He was in his office scrolling through Instagram, probably looking at other people's creative work to steal, when I knocked. "What's up?" He didn't even look away from his phone. I wanted to discuss the TechFlow campaign. My role in it. That got his attention. He set his phone down, face hardening slightly. "Your role?" "I created that entire pitch deck, Marcus. Every concept, every slide, every strategy. And at the meeting, Janet thanked you like you'd done it all yourself." He leaned back in his chair, doing this condescending smile that made my skin crawl. "Maya, you're part of the creative team. Everything we do is collaborative. You know that. Collaborative means we work together. This was me working alone for 3 weeks while you golfed with clients. Is this about recognition?" He stood up, walking around his desk like he was about to give me some fatherly advice. "Because if you want to be in leadership, you need to understand that leadership isn't about getting credit for every little task. It's about the big picture. Every little task. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 3 weeks of 18-hour days was a little task. I'm not asking for credit for tasks, Marcus. I'm asking you to stop presenting my work as yours. His expression shifted then. Less patronizing, more calculating. You know what your problem is, Maya? You're too focused on ownership. This isn't art school. Nobody cares who had the original idea. They care about results, and I'm the one delivering those results to clients. Using my ideas. Using team resources. That's how agencies work. He moved toward the door, clearly done with the conversation. Look, you're talented. Everyone knows that. But if you want to move up, you need to stop being so precious about intellectual property and start thinking like a leader. He walked out of his own office, leaving me standing there. That's when I realized he wasn't going to change. He didn't even think he was doing anything wrong. 2 days later, I got called into Janet's office. My stomach dropped. Had Marcus complained about our conversation? Maya, sit down. Janet gestured to the chair across from her desk. She had that concerned boss expression that never means anything good. Marcus mentioned you've been feeling undervalued lately. Of course he'd gotten to her first. I don't feel undervalued. I feel invisible. Janet sighed, like I was being dramatic. I think there might be some misunderstanding about how creative leadership works here. Marcus is our creative director. His job is to synthesize ideas from the team and present cohesive strategies to clients. Your job is to generate those ideas. Both roles are essential. But when he presents my complete campaign concepts as his own original work, Marcus has 20 years of industry experience. He knows how to package creative work for C-suite audiences. That's a skill you're still developing. She smiled, trying to soften the blow. You're incredibly talented, Maya. Nobody's disputing that. But there's a difference between being a great creative and being a creative leader. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So you knew. About TechFlow. About all the other campaigns. I know that Marcus runs a highly effective creative department that's brought in millions in new business. And I know that you're a valuable part of that department. She stood up, conversation clearly over. Give it time. Keep doing great work. Your turn for recognition will come. My turn. Like there was some cosmic waitlist and I just needed to be patient. I walked out of her office understanding exactly how this worked. Marcus got the credit, Janet got the revenue, and I got told to wait my turn, which would never actually come because they needed me right where I was. Invisible, productive, and not asking questions. That night, I sat in my apartment with my cat, Luna, purring on my lap, and I opened my laptop. I looked at my portfolio, except it wasn't really my portfolio, was it? Half the campaigns listed Marcus as creative director with me buried in the credits as senior designer. The TechFlow pitch wasn't even mentioned under my name yet. I opened LinkedIn. Marcus's profile showed him as the visionary leader behind campaigns I'd created. He had 8,000 followers. Posts about creative leadership and innovation. Comments from industry people calling him brilliant. I had 400 followers and a profile that made me look like I'd been making Instagram graphics for 5 years. This wasn't just about one stolen campaign. This was systemic. He'd been rewriting my career in real time, and I'd let him because I thought if I just kept my head down and did good work, eventually someone would notice. But nobody was going to notice. That was the whole point. I pulled up the folder I'd been building for 6 months. Dozens of emails with timestamps showing I'd sent complete campaign concepts to Marcus, followed by him presenting those exact concepts to clients days later. Slack messages where I'd pitched ideas that became Marcus's vision in meetings. Original files with metadata proving I'd created the work. I had everything. 6 months of meticulous documentation. But what was I supposed to do with it? I called my best friend Rachel, who worked in HR at a different company. She'd been listening to me complain about Marcus for years. "He's never going to stop," she said after I told her about the Janet meeting. "You know that, right? He's found a golden goose. Why would he stop?" "So what do I do? Just quit? Do you have another job lined up?" "No." "Then start building your case. Document everything, and I mean everything. Every email, every file, every timestamp. Because if you're going to leave, you need to protect yourself." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Then maybe it is time to quit. But if you're going to leave, don't just disappear quietly. Make sure they understand exactly what they're losing." After we hung up, I stared at my laptop screen for a long time. Then I opened a new document and started typing my resignation letter. But this wasn't going to be a normal resignation letter. The next morning, I walked into the office with my resignation letter saved on my laptop, but I couldn't submit it yet. We were juggling 3 major campaigns, and I was the only one who knew where all the pieces were, including the Richardson Hotel's pitch that Marcus had volunteered us for without asking if we had capacity. If I left right now, everything would collapse. And it wouldn't be Marcus who suffered, it would be my team. The designers and copywriters who actually respected me, who came to me with questions because Marcus was never available. So I stayed. And I kept working. But this time, I was documenting everything with laser focus. Every morning stand-up where Marcus said, "I've been thinking about this approach," before describing something I'd emailed him the night before. Every client meeting where he presented his strategy that I'd spent weekends developing. I created a folder on my personal cloud drive labeled Receipts. Original files with timestamps. Email chains showing my complete concepts sent to Marcus, followed by him forwarding edited versions to clients with no attribution. Slack screenshots where team members asked me for direction because Marcus didn't understand the technical details. My favorite was a video recording from our last all-hands meeting. Marcus spent 15 minutes explaining his creative philosophy, using examples that were literally point by point from an article I'd written for our company blog 6 months ago. He didn't cite it. Most people had probably forgotten I wrote it. But I had the receipts. 3 weeks later, Marcus called me into the conference room on a Thursday afternoon. "I need you to pull together a presentation for the Richardson Hotel's pitch. Full campaign concept, visual mock-ups, content strategy, budget breakdown. Everything." "Okay. When's the pitch?" "Monday." I stared at him. "Marcus, today is Thursday. That's 2 business days." He smiled like he was complimenting me. "This is a huge opportunity. Richardson has 15 properties across the Southwest. If we land this, we're looking at a $500,000 contract minimum. Who's presenting?" "It'll be me and Janet. Richardson's CEO is old school. Wants to meet with senior leadership only." "Of course. I'd do the work," he'd present it, "and I'd be too busy meeting the impossible deadline to even attend." "And if I can't finish it by Monday?" Marcus's expression hardened. "Then we lose the pitch." I worked until 2 a.m. Thursday, all day Friday, most of Saturday, and all Sunday. I canceled my sister's birthday dinner. I lived on coffee and takeout. By Sunday at 8 p.m., I had 89 slides of brilliant work, for campaign concepts, full visual mock-ups, content calendars, budget breakdowns, projected ROI. I sent it to Marcus at 8:47 p.m. He responded at 8:52 p.m., "Looks good. Thanks for hustling on this." That was it. Monday morning, I came in early, hoping to at least prep Marcus before the meeting. At 9:30, I saw him and Janet heading toward the conference room with the Richardson team. I stood up to join them. Marcus saw me and shook his head slightly, mouthing, "Next time." I sat back down and watched through the glass walls as Marcus presented my entire weekend to 5 executives. He was confident, charismatic. At one point, he drew something on the whiteboard, probably improvising because he didn't actually understand the strategy. They loved it. Lots of nodding, smiling, handshakes. Marcus and Janet came out looking triumphant. And I realized something: I was never going to get credit. I was never going to be in that room. I was never going to be anything more than the invisible engine making Marcus look brilliant. This wasn't going to change. Not ever. Unless I changed it myself. That night, I opened the resignation letter I'd been drafting for weeks. But instead of the standard professional goodbye, I started writing something different. Something detailed. Something with evidence. I wrote about every campaign Marcus had stolen. Every late-night email where I'd sent him complete concepts that became his ideas the next day. Every client meeting where he presented my work as his own. And then I attached the receipts. All of them. Email chains with timestamps. Original files with metadata. Slack messages. Meeting notes. Video recordings. 6 pages. Single-spaced. 23 exhibits attached. I wasn't writing a resignation letter anymore. I was writing a legal record. I saved it in my personal email drafts. But having it written, having all the evidence compiled, it felt like putting on armor. Tomorrow, I'd decide what to do with it. But tonight, for the first time in 5 years, I felt powerful. The Richardson pitch must have gone even better than I thought, because the next morning there was a company-wide email from Janet announcing we'd won the account. $650,000 annually. Biggest contract of the quarter. And of course, the email specifically thanked Marcus Reeves for his innovative campaign strategy and creative vision. I sat at my desk, reading that email 3 times, and something just clicked. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was done. I pulled up my resignation letter, the detailed, 6-page, evidence-filled one, and read through it again. It was good. Thorough. Damning, even. But it was missing something. I opened a new browser tab and started researching. Intellectual property law in Texas. Creative attribution in agency work. Legal precedents for idea theft in corporate settings. Turns out, what Marcus had been doing wasn't just unethical. Depending on how you looked at it, it might actually be fraud, especially if he'd been misrepresenting authorship to clients or using my work to negotiate his own bonuses and promotions. I wasn't planning to sue. I didn't have that kind of money or energy. But I needed Marcus and Janet to know that I could. That I had grounds. That this wasn't just me being emotional or difficult. I spent my lunch break adding 3 more paragraphs to my resignation letter, specifically citing intellectual property concerns and documented attribution fraud. I mentioned consulting with legal counsel, which was technically true. Rachel had a lawyer friend who'd given me some free advice over drinks. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and brilliant. I added a CC line. Not just to Janet. Not just to HR. To the entire leadership team. Including Greg from sales, whose commissions depended on these campaigns. Including our CFO, Patricia, who'd care very much about potential legal liability. Including our outside counsel, whose email I found in an old contract signature line. This letter wasn't just going to Marcus and Janet. It was going to everyone who needed to know what had been happening. I saved it. Read it one more time. And then I closed my laptop and went back to work. Tomorrow. I'd send it tomorrow. Wednesday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. with my heart pounding. This was it. The day I'd been building toward for months. I got dressed in my favorite blazer, dark green, professional, made me feel like I could handle anything. I made coffee. I fed Luna. I sat on my couch with my laptop and opened my personal email. The resignation letter was there in my drafts, ready to send. My finger hovered over the mouse for what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds. Then I clicked send. The whoosh sound felt like jumping off a cliff. I sat there for a moment, slightly dizzy, wondering if I'd just made a huge mistake. Then I closed my laptop, got in my car, and drove to the office. By the time I arrived at 8:30, my phone was already buzzing. 3 missed calls from Marcus. 2 from Janet. 5 unread emails. I ignored all of them and walked calmly to my desk. The office had that weird quiet energy of people pretending to work while obviously discussing something dramatic. My teammate Priya glanced at me with wide eyes as I passed, but didn't say anything. I'd barely sat down when Marcus appeared at my desk. His face was red, that vein in his forehead throbbing that only showed up when he was really angry. My office. Now. Actually, I'm pretty busy this morning. I opened my laptop like nothing was wrong. Maybe after lunch? Maya. My office. Now. The entire floor was watching us. This was already becoming a scene, which honestly wasn't my plan, but I wasn't going to back down. Is this about my resignation? I asked, voice pleasant and professional. Because I'm happy to discuss it, but I think HR should probably be present for that conversation. His jaw clenched. You had no right to send that email to the entire leadership team. I had every right. It's my resignation letter. I can send it to whoever I want. You made serious accusations. I made documented observations supported by evidence. There's a difference. Janet appeared then, speed-walking across the floor with Sandra from HR trailing behind her. Sandra looked terrified, clutching her laptop like a shield. Conference room. All of us. Right now, Janet said, her voice tight. This was happening faster than I'd expected, but I was ready. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and followed them to the conference room. The entire office watched us walk by. Someone's desk phone rang in the silence and nobody answered it. Inside the conference room, Janet closed the door and immediately turned on me. What the hell was that email, Maya? My resignation letter. That wasn't a resignation letter. That was a manifesto. With legal threats. I didn't threaten anything. I stated facts. Marcus was pacing behind the table, running his hands through his hair. This is insane. You're making it sound like I stole from you. You did steal from me. For 5 years. We're a collaborative team. Show me one campaign where you gave me proper credit. One. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked at Janet for support. Janet sat down heavily. Maya, I think you're misunderstanding the nature of creative leadership. I'm not misunderstanding anything. I have emails. Timestamps. Original files. Documentation of every campaign Marcus presented as his own work that I actually created. Sandra, who'd been silent this whole time, quietly opened her laptop. I should probably read the actual letter. For HR purposes. No, Marcus started. Yes, Janet cut him off. Read it, Sandra. Out loud. Oh, this wasn't how I'd imagined this going, but it was somehow better. Sandra's hands were shaking slightly as she pulled up the email. The room went completely silent. And then she started reading. Dear Janet and Vertex Media Leadership Team, I am writing to formally resign from my position as Senior Creative Designer, effective 2 weeks from today. This decision comes after 5 years of consistent intellectual property misappropriation and attribution fraud. Marcus's face went from red to white. Sandra kept reading. Every campaign I'd listed. Every piece of evidence. Every timestamp. All 6 pages. It took almost 10 minutes. When she finished, nobody spoke. Janet was staring at the table. Marcus looked like he might be sick. That's. Sandra cleared her throat. That's quite detailed. It's all documented, I said quietly. Every single claim. Marcus finally found his voice. Half of those campaigns were collaborative. You're making it sound like I did nothing. What did you do, Marcus? Specifically. I provided creative direction. Vision. I refined your ideas into client-ready strategies. Show me one email where you provided creative direction before I sent you the complete concept. Silence. Show me one Slack message where you contributed to the strategy. More silence. Show me literally any evidence that you did more than forward my work to clients with your name on it. He couldn't. We all knew he couldn't. Janet rubbed her temples. Maya, even if some of what you're saying is true, all of it is true. You should have come to HR, gone through proper channels. I came to you directly. You told me I was being too precious about intellectual property and needed to think like a leader. She flinched. She'd forgotten I'd have that conversation documented too. And besides, I continued, I did go through proper channels. I'm resigning. Professionally. With proper notice. And I'm documenting my reasons for legal protection, which is my right. Sandra was nodding slightly, like she agreed but couldn't say it out loud. Legal protection, Marcus spat. You're threatening to sue. I'm protecting myself in case anyone tries to discredit me or damage my professional reputation after I leave. That's different. Janet stood up abruptly. I need to talk to our lawyer. Sandra, don't discuss this with anyone. Maya, go back to your desk. Marcus, my office. Now. She stormed out. Marcus followed, shooting me a look that would have intimidated me 6 months ago. But I wasn't that person anymore. I walked back to my desk with my head high, aware that the entire office was pretending not to watch me. My hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline, but I felt good. Powerful. Free. My phone buzzed. A text from Priya, holy shit. Are you okay? I texted back, never better. The 2 weeks after I submitted my resignation were the strangest of my professional life. Marcus avoided me completely. He'd literally turn around and walk the other direction if he saw me in the hallway. Our morning stand-ups became awkward affairs where he'd address everyone except me, even when asking questions about projects I was managing. Janet called me into her office on day 3 to discuss the situation. She offered me a raise, 15%, if I'd stay and work through our communication issues. This isn't about money, I told her. Then what is it about? Respect. Attribution. Being treated like my work matters. She got quiet. I can talk to Marcus about being more collaborative going forward. Janet, he stole 5 years of my career. A conversation isn't going to fix that. She didn't have a response to that. The rest of the team didn't know what to do with me. Some people, like Priya, were clearly on my side. They'd stop by my desk to ask how I was doing, tell me they'd be references for whatever came next. Other people avoided me like I was contagious. Like standing up for yourself was some kind of disease they might catch. My actual work became weird too. I was still technically employed for 2 more weeks, but nobody wanted to give me new projects. I spent most of my time documenting processes, organizing files, and writing transition notes for whoever would replace me. Except they weren't replacing me. I heard through Priya that Marcus planned to redistribute my responsibilities across the existing team. Translation: everyone else would do my job for free while he continued taking credit. At night, I'd lie awake wondering if I'd made a massive mistake. I had no job lined up. The industry wasn't huge, word would spread. What if I'd just nuked my entire career over pride? But then I'd remember Marcus presenting my Richardson Hotels campaign while I sat at my desk. Janet telling me to wait my turn. 5 years of being invisible. And I'd know I'd made the right choice. 3 weeks after my last day at Vertex, I'd taken a week to just decompress. I got a LinkedIn message from someone named Kira Vance. Hi Maya, I'm the VP of Creative at Amplified Digital in Denver. I saw some of your campaign work for Vertex Media and I'm really impressed. Would you be open to a conversation about opportunities here? My heart started racing. I clicked on her profile. Amplified Digital was one of the top agencies in the region. They did work for major national brands. This wasn't just a job, this was a career move up. I wrote back immediately, absolutely. When works for you? We set up a call for the next day. I spent that entire evening researching Amplified Digital, looking at their client roster, studying their recent campaigns. They were doing the kind of innovative work I'd always wanted to do but never had the freedom to try at Vertex. The call lasted an hour. Kira was sharp, funny, and didn't waste time with small talk. "I'm going to be direct," she said 20 minutes in. "I know you just resigned from Vertex. And I know why." My stomach dropped. "You do?" "I know. And I'm not going to discuss the specifics with anyone. But Maya, what you documented, that level of strategic thinking, attention to detail, ability to build comprehensive campaigns, that's exactly what we need here. You're not worried I'm difficult to work with? Or litigious?" Kira laughed. "You're not difficult. You have standards. There's a difference. And honestly, if someone on my team was stealing credit for your work, I'd want to know about it immediately so I could fix it." We talked for another 40 minutes about the role, creative director position, managing a team of 8, working directly with clients, full creative autonomy on campaigns. "I want to be clear about something," Kira said as we wrapped up. "At Amplify, we have strict attribution policies. Every campaign has clear documentation of who created what. Your work will be your work. That's non-negotiable here." I almost cried right there on the Zoom call. 3 days later, I flew to Denver for an in-person interview. Amplify Digital's office was in a converted warehouse with exposed brick, natural light everywhere, and an actual art installation in the lobby. It felt like a different universe from Vertex Media's corporate beige office park. I met with Kira and 3 other people on the leadership team. They asked about my process, my creative philosophy, how I handled client feedback. Normal interview questions. But then Marcus, their CEO, different Marcus, completely unrelated to my nightmare boss, asked something that caught me off guard. "Tell me about a time you had to advocate for yourself professionally." The room went quiet. They'd definitely read my resignation letter. I took a breath. Recently, I spent 5 years building a creative department and establishing processes that brought in millions in revenue. But I wasn't in leadership, so I wasn't in the rooms where my work got presented. Over time, the person who was in those rooms started presenting my work as his own. And when I realized it wasn't going to change, I documented everything and left. "Why document it?" Marcus asked. "Why not just leave quietly?" "Because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That I had actually done the work. And because I wanted to make sure they understood exactly what they were losing." He nodded slowly. "Did they?" "I don't think so. Not yet. But they will." The interview ended with Kira walking me out. "We'll be in touch soon. Very soon." I flew back to Austin feeling something I hadn't felt in years, hope. The offer came 4 days later. Creative director. $95,000 salary, $30,000 more than I'd been making. Full benefits, 4 weeks PTO, and profit sharing. Start date flexible, but they hoped I could begin in 2 weeks. I read the offer letter 3 times, sitting in my apartment with Luna purring in my lap. This was real. This was happening. I called Rachel, who screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "I told you," she yelled. "I told you good things would happen. I haven't accepted yet. Maya. Accept the offer. Right now. I'll wait." I laughed, opened my email, and typed out my acceptance while still on the phone with her. "Done," I said. "I'm so proud of you. You know that?" After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a few more minutes, just breathing. In 2 weeks, I'd be starting over in a new city with a new team that actually valued creative attribution. The fear and uncertainty of the past few weeks melted away, replaced by something I hadn't felt in a long time, excitement about the future. My first day at Amplify Digital felt like landing on a different planet. The office was bright, collaborative, full of natural light and real plants. People were genuinely happy. But the real difference came in my first team meeting. Kira introduced me by talking about my actual work. This is Maya. She created the Stellar Apps campaign that won the Webby last year. People knew my work. They'd studied it. One designer, Sienna, said she'd used my TechFlow campaign as a case study. Thank you, I said, and realized I hadn't been thanked for my actual work in years. My office had a window with natural light. There was a welcome basket on my desk with a note, "Can't wait to create amazing things together." This was what it felt like to be valued. At the weekly Creative Sync, the team was discussing the Cascade Coffee project. Sienna pitched a new direction about farm-to-cup storytelling. The room discussed it, building on her idea. And then Kira did something that made me want to cry. She started writing names next to ideas on the whiteboard. Sienna, farm story concept. James, video production plan. Maya, if you want to jump in, we could use thoughts on the overall campaign structure. I suggested creating a seasonal series, follow 3 farmers through harvest season, release 1 story per month, each farmer's coffee becomes a limited edition blend. That's brilliant, James said. Kira wrote Maya, seasonal series structure, on the board. My name. Right there. Attributed to my idea in real time. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Within my first month, everything clicked. The Cascade Coffee campaign moved forward with the seasonal series. The client approved it immediately with a 40% budget increase because they loved the concept. After the meeting, the client's marketing director pulled me aside. "We came to Amplify specifically because we heard they'd brought you on board. Everyone in the industry knows the TechFlow and Stellar Apps campaigns are yours." Word had gotten out. And instead of hurting my reputation, it had made people respect me more. By month's end, I was managing 18 people instead of 12. Our department's performance metrics were the highest they'd been in 2 years. Kira started including me in executive strategy sessions. "I'm starting to think we undervalued this position," she said after one meeting. "Would you be interested in discussing expanded responsibilities?" Expanded responsibilities. At Vertex, that meant more work for the same recognition. Here, it felt like genuine opportunity. 3 weeks in, we landed the North Point Airlines account, a $1.2 million contract. Kira put me in charge of leading the pitch. Not assisting. Leading. I built elevation in every detail, a campaign treating flying like a curated boutique experience. We'd redesign everything from their app to in-flight packaging. Walking into that pitch room felt like a parallel universe of the TechFlow presentation. Except this time, I was at the front. Halfway through, North Point's CEO interrupted. "Where did you come from? How have we not heard of you before?" Kira jumped in. "Maya just joined us from Vertex Media. She led the TechFlow and Stellar Apps campaigns." "Those were yours?" The CEO looked genuinely surprised. "We were told Marcus Reeves created those." The room went quiet. "Marcus Reeves presented those campaigns," I said carefully. "I created them." The CEO leaned forward. "Well, that explains why we're here. Keep going. We want to see what you can do when you get proper credit." Monday morning, we got the signed contract. The North Point win became a huge deal. Our CEO sent a company-wide email with my name listed first as lead strategist. My inbox flooded with congratulations from across the company. That afternoon, Kira knocked on my door. North Point asked if you'd be willing to do a case study interview with Adage about the campaign strategy. "They specifically want you." Adage. One of the biggest industry publications. An article with my name on it, talking about my work. "Yes," I said immediately. "Absolutely yes." After she left, I sat at my desk looking at the North Point contract with my name on it as creative director and lead strategist. At Vertex, I'd spent 5 years invisible. At Amplify, I'd spent 1 month becoming known. The difference wasn't my work. The work had always been good. The difference was working somewhere that let me be seen. 2 months into my job at Amplify, I ran into Tom Rivera from Vertex at a coffee shop in Denver. "Maya. I heard you landed at Amplify. Congratulations. His smile faltered. Actually, I'm interviewing here too. Everyone's leaving Vertex. We sat down. Tom looked exhausted. After you left, things got weird. Really weird. TechFlow started having issues. They were asking for you specifically, and when Marcus tried to handle it himself, he couldn't answer their technical questions. It became obvious he didn't actually understand the campaigns he'd been presenting. How bad did it get? They threatened to pull the contract. Then Richardson Hotels had the same problems. Stellar Apps put their next phase on hold. Within 6 weeks, we'd lost 3 major accounts. He showed me his phone. This was sent to the whole company last week. Janet's email, due to unexpected client attrition and revenue shortfalls, will be implementing a hiring freeze and reducing contractor budgets. Corporate speak for, we're in trouble. Priya quit 2 weeks ago. Josh, that intern we hired a year ago, got let go. Half the design team is actively job hunting. Tom put his phone away. Everyone knew you were carrying that department. But we didn't realize how much until you weren't there anymore. That night, I got a LinkedIn message from Melissa Chong, the CMO at TechFlow Industries. I wanted to reach out because we're currently evaluating our relationship with Vertex Media. She called 20 minutes later. I'm just going to be direct. When we hired Vertex, Marcus was supposed to be our primary strategic lead. But since we signed, every interaction has been surface level. He doesn't remember pitch details. He can't answer implementation questions. He sent us revised strategies that contradict the original concept. She paused. Then someone on my team found your resignation letter circulating online. The TechFlow campaign was listed as one of the projects you created that Marcus took credit for. Is that accurate? Yes. So the pitch that convinced us to hire Vertex was your work, but you're no longer there. That's correct. She was quiet for a moment. We're paying $200,000 annually for services that were supposed to be led by the person who created our strategy. That person is gone, and we're getting someone who can't answer basic questions. I'm bringing this to our board next week. Also, if you ever want to discuss consulting opportunities with TechFlow directly, my door is open. After we hung up, I sat feeling numb. This was bigger than I'd realized. 3 days later, Priya called me, upset. Maya, Marcus is telling people you sabotaged Vertex before you left. He's saying you deliberately damaged client relationships and poisoned people against him. He sent an email about professional ethics and not burning bridges. He's literally blaming you for his own failures. Did anyone believe him? Some newer people, maybe. But everyone who's been there more than a year knows it's bullshit. We watched you work 80-hour weeks while he took credit. She sighed. But he's getting desperate. Janet's putting pressure on him, and he's lashing out. He's talking about legal action. My blood went cold. Legal action for what? I don't know. It might just be posturing. But I thought you should know. I immediately called Rachel's lawyer friend, David. If he tries to claim defamation, does he have a case? Did you lie in your resignation letter? No. Everything was documented. Then no, he doesn't have a case. Truth is a complete defense. But he could still file something frivolous to intimidate you. I spent that evening organizing all my files. Every email, every original file, every piece of evidence. Just in case. The next morning, Kira called me into her office with good news. Remember that Adage interview? They want to move it up and expand it into a feature piece about emerging creative directors to watch. You'd be one of 5 people profiled. My stomach sank. She wants to write about Marcus. She wants to write about you, your work, your success at Amplify. But yes, the Vertex situation would probably come up. This could define you as someone who stood up for themselves and won. That's powerful. I thought about Marcus telling people I'd sabotaged him. About 5 years of being invisible. I'll do it. That same week, 2 more opportunities landed. A podcast interview request. An invitation to speak on a panel about creative leadership. My inbox filled with messages from people I'd never met. Former Vertex clients asking about freelance consulting. Creatives from other agencies saying my resignation letter had inspired them to document their own situations. I'd thought leaving Vertex would make me invisible again. Instead, I was more visible than I'd ever been. And somewhere in Austin, Marcus was watching his world fall apart while mine expanded. The email came from Josh, the intern who'd been let go. Subject: I need advice. I've been applying for junior designer positions for 6 weeks. I keep getting to final rounds, then nothing. Yesterday someone finally told me why, when they call Vertex for a reference, Marcus tells them I was unreliable and didn't meet basic standards. Maya, I worked my ass off there. But now I can't get hired anywhere because he's trashing my reputation. I read it 3 times, feeling sick. Josh was 23. Fresh out of design school. And now Marcus was sabotaging his career because he'd been friendly with me. I called him immediately. Josh, what he's doing is illegal, you can't give false references. But how do I prove it? And I can't afford a lawyer. He was right. Send me your portfolio and resume. I'm going to make some calls. Priya messaged that afternoon, 3 more people got let go today. Marcus told everyone it's because of revenue issues caused by client sabotage. He's literally making you the villain for his own failures. That night, Rachel came over with wine. And I keep thinking, if I'd just stayed quiet, maybe those people would still have jobs. Rachel set down her wine glass hard. Stop. You are not responsible for Marcus being a fraud. You're not responsible for him destroying the department. And you're definitely not responsible for him sabotaging people's references. But if I hadn't sent that letter, then you'd still be miserable, Marcus would still be stealing credit, and eventually it would have collapsed anyway. Maya, you exposed a problem. You didn't create it. Tell that to Josh, who can't get hired. So help Josh. You have connections now. Use them. She was right. I'd been so focused on guilt that I'd forgotten I had power now. I opened my laptop and made 2 lists. Every person from Vertex who deserved better. And everyone I'd met who'd mentioned hiring needs. What are you doing? Rachel asked. Fighting back. But not against Marcus. For the people who actually deserve help. The next morning, I started making calls. First, Kira. Do we have any junior designer positions opening up? We're looking to expand. Why? I told her about Josh. Send me his portfolio. If his work is good, we'll interview him. Josh had an interview by noon. I reached out to North Point CEO about Priya. By the end of the day, she had an interview too. Tom was already interviewing at Amplify. I put in a good word. For Dana the copywriter, I sent her samples to a boutique agency in Austin. By the end of the week, I'd made connections for 6 different people. Kevin sent me a message. Priya told me what you've been doing. You didn't have to help us. Thank you. Marcus made this mess, I wrote back. Doesn't mean you should suffer for it. That weekend, Rachel and I met for brunch. So you've basically become an underground railroad for Vertex refugees. I'm just making introductions. You're rebuilding their careers after Marcus tried to destroy them. She sipped her mimosa. Have you heard anything from Vertex leadership? Radio silence. I think Janet's in crisis mode trying to keep the company afloat. That's the thing about toxic workplaces. The people at the top rarely see the casualties. I thought about how Janet had known Marcus was taking credit and decided it was easier to keep things as they were. You know what I've learned? It's not enough to be talented or work hard. You have to work somewhere that has systems to protect people. Attribution policies. Clear documentation. Leadership that cares about fairness. That's what you have at Amplify. Yeah. And it shouldn't be rare. It should be standard. I looked at my phone, at messages from people thanking me. Every person suffering at Vertex is talented. They worked hard. But they were in a system designed to exploit them while protecting people like Marcus. So what do you do about it? I thought about the Adage interview. The panel discussion. The podcast. I talk about it. Publicly. So maybe the next person recognizes what's happening sooner. So maybe companies realize that stealing credit isn't just unethical, it's bad business. Marcus destroyed that department by taking credit for work he couldn't do. That's not just a moral failing. That's a structural problem. You're going to make some people uncomfortable. Good. Comfortable people don't change anything. For months after leaving Vertex, my life looked completely different. The Adage feature went viral. Maya Torres, the creative director who chose visibility over silence. Within a week, 50,000 shares. My LinkedIn jumped from 400 followers to 8,000. I got interview requests from 3 podcasts and a conference keynote invitation. But the best part was the messages, dozens, then hundreds, saying, "This happened to me too," or, "Thank you for speaking up," or, "I just started documenting my situation because of your story." I'd accidentally started a movement. At Amplify, the North Point campaign launched with incredible results, bookings up 35% in the first month. We'd signed 4 new major accounts. I'd been promoted to Senior Creative Director with Equity. Kira pulled me aside. "You know this isn't charity, right? You've earned every bit of this. The team loves you, clients request you, and our creative output has been the strongest it's been in years." Josh was thriving at Amplify. Priya loved her North Point job. Tom was interviewing at a tech startup. One by one, good people were escaping Vertex and landing somewhere better. As for Vertex itself, they'd lost 7 major accounts. Laid off a third of their staff, down to 32 people total. Marcus had been quietly moved to a consulting role. I tried not to feel satisfied about it. Mostly failed. The email came on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Subject, Invitation, Vertex Media 10-year anniversary celebration. As a valued former team member who contributed significantly to our growth, we would be honored by your presence. The event will include a retrospective of our most successful campaigns, recognition of team members past and present, and an exciting announcement about the future direction of the company. I read it 3 times. They wanted me at their anniversary party. After everything. My first instinct was to delete it. My second was to reply with a detailed list of reasons why they could go to hell. But then I thought about it. Exciting announcement about the future direction. What were they announcing? And recognition of team members past and present. Were they actually going to acknowledge my contributions? I forwarded it to Rachel. Thoughts? She called immediately. "Are you seriously considering going? I'm not the same person who left. I'm not scared of them anymore. And honestly, I'm curious. It could be a trap. Or incredibly awkward. Probably both. But I kind of want to see it anyway." Rachel was quiet. "You want to go back and show them who you've become?" "Maybe. Is that petty?" "It's human. And after what they put you through, you've earned it. But don't go alone. Bring Kira. Show up with your actual boss who respects you." Kira was immediately interested. "Are you kidding? I'd love to go. Plus, I get to watch you walk in there as a successful creative director who's been featured in Adage. That's going to be satisfying." I bought a new dress. Deep burgundy, elegant, expensive. The kind that said, "I'm doing extremely well, thank you for asking." 3 days before the event, Priya texted, "Did you get invited to the Vertex anniversary thing?" "Yeah. Are you going?" "Hell no. But everyone's talking about it. Apparently Marcus has been telling people you won't come because you're embarrassed about the negative attention." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied to Janet's email, "I'll be there. +1. Looking forward to it." The Presidio Hotel was elegant, marble floors, crystal chandeliers. Vertex had spent money on this event, which was interesting given their financial struggles. Kira and I arrived at 7 p.m. sharp. She looked incredible in a navy suit. I wore my burgundy dress with my grandmother's silver necklace and heels that made me 3 inches taller. We walked through the doors together, and every eye in the room turned toward us. The lobby was full of familiar faces. Some looked happy to see me. Others uncomfortable. A few avoided eye contact. Tom spotted us first. "Maya. You actually came. And you brought, wait, is that Kira Vance?" They shook hands while Tom looked starstruck. "The Cascade Coffee campaign was genius," he said. "Maya's campaign," Kira said smoothly. "I just gave her the resources to execute her vision." Tom's expression shifted, impressed and maybe sad. "Yeah. That's what should have been happening here." More people gravitated toward us. Former colleagues. Clients. Everyone polite but tense. And then I saw Marcus. He was standing near the bar with Janet, watching me. Marcus looked older, more tired. His suit hung loose, like he'd lost weight. Janet's expression was unreadable. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the room. Then they started walking toward us. Kira leaned in. "Here we go. You ready?" I straightened my shoulders, lifted my chin, and smiled. "Absolutely." Janet reached us first, Marcus trailing slightly behind like he wasn't sure he wanted to be part of this conversation. "Maya. Thank you so much for coming." Janet's smile was professional but strained. "And you must be Kira Vance. We've heard wonderful things about Amplify Digital." "All true, I'm sure." Kira shook her hand with perfect corporate politeness. "Thank you for the invitation. Beautiful venue. We wanted to do something special for our 10th anniversary. Celebrate how far we've come." Janet's eyes flicked to me. "And acknowledge the people who helped build this company." Marcus finally stepped forward, extending his hand. "Maya. Good to see you." I looked at his hand for a beat longer than was comfortable before shaking it. "Marcus." His grip was weak. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 4 months. There were shadows under his eyes, and his suit didn't fit quite right, like he'd lost weight. "Congratulations on your success at Amplify," he said, and it sounded like the words physically hurt him. The adage feature was, impressive. "Thank you. It's amazing what you can accomplish when your work is actually attributed to you." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. A few people nearby definitely heard that and were pretending they hadn't. Janet cleared her throat. "Well, we should probably start mingling. Maya, I'm hoping we can chat later. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." "Of course." They moved away, and I exhaled slowly. Kira squeezed my arm. That was perfect. Polite but firm. "You didn't give him an inch. Did you see his face? He looked miserable." "Good. He should be." The cocktail hour continued with that same weird tension. People kept approaching me, some to congratulate me on my new job, others to carefully avoid mentioning anything about why I'd left. A few former clients pulled me aside to say they wished they'd known what was happening, that they would have said something. "We just assumed Marcus was the lead and you were supporting," one of them admitted. "We didn't realize it was the other way around until after you left and the quality dropped off a cliff." Around 7:45, Janet took the stage. The room quieted as everyone turned to face her. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here to celebrate 10 years of Vertex Media." She smiled, but it looked tired. "This has been a remarkable journey. When we started this agency, we were just 5 people in a shared office space. Today, we're a team of 32 talented professionals serving clients across multiple industries." 32. They'd had almost 60 employees when I left. The decline was worse than I'd thought. We've had incredible successes over the years. Award-winning campaigns. Long-term client partnerships. Industry recognition. Janet clicked to the next slide, which showed a montage of campaigns. I recognized at least 7 of them. All mine. All presented with Marcus's name as creative director. But we've also learned some difficult lessons this year, Janet continued, and the room got even quieter. About leadership. About attribution. About the importance of recognizing the people who do the actual work, not just the people who present it. Oh. This was actually happening. Janet clicked to a new slide. It was titled Acknowledging Our Foundation. Over the past few months, we've been doing some soul-searching as a company. Examining our practices, our culture, our values. And we've realized that we haven't always given credit where credit was due. She looked directly at me. Maya Torres worked at Vertex Media for 5 years. In that time, she built our creative department from the ground up, established processes that we still use today, and created some of our most successful campaigns. The slide behind her changed to show campaign images, TechFlow, Stellar Apps, Richardson Hotels, all the ones Marcus had claimed. These campaigns were created by Maya. Not just contributed to. Created. And we failed to properly acknowledge that. Janet's voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, regret, maybe, or just exhaustion. Maya, if you're willing, I'd like to invite you up here to say a few words. Every head in the room turned toward me. Kira whispered, "You don't have to do this." But I was already standing up. Because this moment of public acknowledgement, was something I'd imagined 100 times. And now it was actually happening. I walked to the stage on slightly shaky legs. Janet handed me the microphone and stepped back. I looked out at the crowd. Familiar faces. Former colleagues. Clients. And Marcus, standing near the back, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I took a breath. Thank you, Janet. And thank you all for being here tonight. My voice was steadier than I expected. When I got the invitation to this event, I wasn't sure I should come. I left Vertex under difficult circumstances, and I think most of you know why. A few uncomfortable shifts in the crowd. For 5 years, I loved working here. I loved the creative challenges, the client relationships, the team we built together. I poured everything I had into this place, nights, weekends, holidays. I believed that if I just did excellent work, that would be enough. I paused, looking at the campaign images still on the screen behind me. But excellent work isn't enough if no one knows you did it. I watched campaigns I'd created get presented as someone else's vision. I sat in meetings where strategies I developed were attributed to other people. And every time I tried to speak up about it, I was told I was being too precious about ownership, that I didn't understand how leadership worked, that I should be grateful just to be part of the team. The room was dead silent now. So eventually, I stopped speaking up. I convinced myself it was fine. That the work mattered more than the credit. That someday, people would see what I was contributing. I looked directly at Marcus. But that day never came. Because systems that allow people to take credit for others' work don't fix themselves. They just keep exploiting the people at the bottom until those people leave. Someone in the crowd, I think it was Tom, started nodding. When I resigned, I documented everything. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That I had actually done the work everyone said I hadn't done. I turned to Janet. And I'm grateful that you're acknowledging that now. Really. But this shouldn't have taken my leaving for you to see it. Janet's expression was carefully neutral, but I saw her jaw tighten. I've learned a lot in the past 4 months. I've learned that there are companies where attribution is standard practice, not a favor. Where documentation is built into the process so credit can't be stolen. Where collaborative doesn't mean I do the work and someone else takes credit. I smiled, thinking of Amplify. And I've learned that speaking up about workplace injustice doesn't make you difficult. It makes you professional. I looked around the room, making eye contact with former colleagues. If you're in a situation like I was, where your work is being erased, where someone else is building their career on your ideas, document everything. Tell someone. And if nothing changes, leave. You deserve better. We all deserve better. The room was so quiet I could hear people breathing. Thank you for this acknowledgement tonight. It means something. But I hope it also means that Vertex Media is actually changing how it operates, so the next talented person who walks through those doors doesn't have to fight this same battle. I handed the microphone back to Janet and walked off the stage. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone started clapping. It was Priya. I'd missed seeing her come in. Then Tom joined. Then more people. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. Not everyone. Marcus wasn't. Neither were a few people I recognized as his friends. But enough people were clapping that the message was clear. I made it back to Kira, who pulled me into a quick hug. That was incredible. You were incredible. People started approaching immediately. Former colleagues wanting to shake my hand, tell me they'd been inspired, ask if I had any job openings at Amplify. A designer named Kevin, who'd been laid off 2 months ago, had tears in his eyes. Thank you for saying that. I've been blaming myself for getting fired, thinking I wasn't good enough. But it wasn't about the work, was it? It was never about the work, I told him. You're talented. The system was just broken. More people cycled through. Some apologized for not speaking up when they saw what was happening. Others thanked me for being brave enough to say something. A few just wanted to tell me they'd followed my career and were proud of how I'd landed. Janet eventually came over, looking exhausted. Maya, could we talk privately? Just for a few minutes? I glanced at Kira, who nodded. I'll be right here. Janet led me to a quiet corner near the windows. That speech was powerful, she said carefully. And deserved. You were right about a lot of things. Just a lot. She almost smiled. Most things. I failed you as a leader. I saw what was happening and I chose the path of least resistance instead of doing what was right. She looked out the window. It cost the company dearly. We've lost clients, lost talent, lost reputation. And it's because I prioritized keeping the peace over protecting my employees. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know I learned from it. We've implemented new attribution protocols. Every project has clear documentation of who created what. We're rebuilding the culture from the ground up. She turned back to me. And I wanted to ask if you'd consider coming back. As creative director. Real creative director, with full authority and equity in the company. I stared at her. You're offering me Marcus's job. Marcus is transitioning out. It's time. I looked at Janet for a long moment, processing what she'd just offered. Creative director. At Vertex Media. The position I should have had years ago, now being handed to me after everything had fallen apart. Janet, I appreciate the offer. I really do. But I need to be honest with you, I'm not interested. Her face fell. Maya, please just think about it. We could. I have thought about it. I spent 5 years thinking about it. Hoping for it. Working toward it. I kept my voice gentle but firm. But that ship sailed. I'm happy at Amplify. I have equity there too. And more importantly, I have a boss who valued me from day one, not after I left and took half your clients with me. That's fair, she said quietly. I understand. I had to try. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why now? Why did it take losing everything for you to finally acknowledge what was happening? Janet was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. Honestly? Because it was easier not to see it. Marcus was bringing in business. You were producing excellent work. As long as the system functioned, I told myself it was fine. She looked up at me. But you were right. The system was broken. And I was complicit in keeping it broken because fixing it would have been uncomfortable. That's the problem with systems like that, I said. They work great for the people at the top. It's only when they collapse that anyone notices the damage. We're trying to do better now. I hope you are. For everyone who's still there. I paused. But Janet, fixing attribution policies isn't enough. You need to examine why you hired someone who couldn't actually do the job. Why you believed Marcus over me when I told you what was happening. Why it was easier to offer me a raise to shut up than to investigate my claims. She nodded slowly. You're right. All of that is part of the work we're doing. Good. Because the next Maya Torres who walks through your door deserves better than I got. Before Janet could respond, Marcus appeared. He'd clearly been watching us from across the room, waiting for his moment. Can I talk to you? He asked me, not looking at Janet. Alone? Janet excused herself diplomatically, though I saw her hesitate like she wasn't sure leaving us alone was a good idea. Marcus and I stood by the windows, the city lights of Austin spread out below us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. That was quite a speech, he finally said. It was honest. It made me look terrible. You made yourself look terrible. I just said what happened. He flinched at that. Maya, I know I messed up. I know I took credit for your work. But it wasn't personal. It was just how the industry works. Everyone does it. Not everyone. And everyone does it isn't an excuse, it's an admission that you knew it was wrong. I'm trying to apologize here. Are you? Because it sounds like you're trying to justify what you did. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. I should have given you more credit. I should have included you in presentations. I should have. You should have done your own work, I interrupted. Marcus, you couldn't answer basic questions about campaigns you supposedly created. You didn't understand the strategy behind projects you presented to clients. You built your entire career on my ideas, and when I left, everyone saw that you couldn't actually do the job. I could do the job. You couldn't. That's why TechFlow left. Why Richardson left. Why half your clients left. Because they hired you for work I did, and you couldn't deliver. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. I'm being transitioned out. Janet told me last week. Tonight is basically my goodbye party, though nobody's supposed to know that yet. I waited, not sure what he wanted me to say to that. I'm probably not going to work in this industry again. Not at this level. Everyone knows what happened. He looked at me. You destroyed my career. No, Marcus. You destroyed your career by being a fraud. I just documented it. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you take responsibility. Marcus stared out the window, his jaw working like he was trying to hold something back. Finally, he turned to face me fully. Look, I know I can't undo what happened. But I was thinking, maybe we could work together again. Start fresh. You clearly don't want to come back to Vertex, but what if I joined Amplify? We could be a team, like we should have been from the beginning. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. You think I'd recommend you to my current employer? After everything? We did good work together, Maya. You can't deny that. We didn't do good work together. I did good work. You stole it and presented it as yours. That's not collaboration, Marcus. That's theft. But if we had clear attribution this time. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Marcus, I don't trust you. I will never trust you. And even if I did, you don't have the skills Amplify needs. You can't do the strategic work. You can't manage client relationships beyond surface-level schmoozing. You're a creative director who can't actually direct creative. His face flushed red. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You spent 5 years letting me do your job while you took the credit. You never learned how to actually do the work because you never had to. I softened my voice slightly. Marcus, you need to find a role that actually matches your skills. Maybe you're good at client relations. Or business development. But you're not a creative director. You never were. So that's it? You're just going to watch me fail? I'm not watching you do anything. I'm living my own life, at a company that values me, doing work that's actually attributed to me. I picked up my purse. What you do next is your choice. You can keep blaming me for exposing what you did, or you can take responsibility and figure out what you're actually good at. But either way, it's not my problem anymore. Maya. I hope you figure it out, Marcus. I really do. But I'm done carrying you. I walked away from Marcus and found Kira chatting with a group of industry people near the bar. She saw my face and immediately excused herself. You okay? Marcus just asked if I'd help him get a job at Amplify. Her eyes widened. You're kidding. I wish I was. I shook my head. He still doesn't get it. He thinks this is all just a misunderstanding, that we could start fresh if we just had better systems in place. Some people will never take responsibility for their actions, Kira said. They'll spend their whole lives convinced they're the victim. I looked back across the room. Marcus was standing alone by the windows, looking diminished and lost. Janet was talking to a group of clients, working hard to maintain relationships that were probably already doomed. The whole room had this air of desperation, people clinging to something that was already falling apart. I'm ready to leave, I told Kira. You sure? We haven't even had dinner yet. I'm sure. I said what I needed to say. I heard their apologies. But I don't belong here anymore. I smiled. This isn't my world. It hasn't been for months. We collected our coats and headed toward the exit. On the way out, Tom caught up with us. Maya, wait. I just wanted to say thank you. For the referral, for speaking up tonight, for everything. He glanced back at the party. You gave a lot of us permission to admit that this place was broken. That's worth something. You're going to be okay, Tom. You're talented and you know your stuff. Any agency would be lucky to have you. He smiled. I hope Amplify agrees. Second interview is next week. I'll put in a good word. Kira and I walked out into the cool November night. The hotel's valet was pulling up cars, and people were starting to filter out, the party apparently winding down earlier than planned. How do you feel? Kira asked as we waited for her car. I thought about it. About the speech I'd given. About Janet's offer. About Marcus's pathetic attempt at reconciliation. I feel free, I said. Like I finally closed a door that's been hanging open for months. Good. Because you've got a campaign strategy meeting at 9 tomorrow morning, and I need you fully present. I laughed. Back to real life. Back to the life you built. The one where you get credit for your work. Her car arrived, and we drove away from the Presidio Hotel. I didn't look back. Kira and I drove through downtown Austin in comfortable silence. I found myself thinking about the first time I'd driven this route, 5 years ago, nervous and excited about my first day at Vertex. You know what's weird? I said. I don't regret it. Any of it. Kira glanced at me. Even the 5 years of Marcus stealing your work? Even that. Because if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned what I'm not willing to accept. I wouldn't have known what to look for in my next job. And I definitely wouldn't have ended up at Amplify. That's a very mature perspective. Or I'm just good at finding silver linings. But honestly, there's something powerful about going through something terrible and coming out stronger. Not because the terrible thing was good, but because you proved to yourself you could survive it. Can I tell you something? Kira said. When I first read your resignation letter, my first thought wasn't I should hire her. It was I should protect my team from ever experiencing what she experienced. I went back and audited all our projects, made sure every campaign had proper attribution. Your situation didn't just help you. It helped every person at Amplify. I felt something warm spread through my chest. I had no idea. That's the thing about speaking up. You never know who's listening. You probably helped people at agencies across the country who read that article. So what happens next? Where do you see yourself going? I want to keep doing great creative work. But I also want to talk about this stuff: attribution, workplace equity, building teams that value everyone. Is that too ambitious? Not even a little bit. The best leaders create excellent work and mentor others. She pulled up to my apartment. You're just getting started, Maya. This is the beginning, not the end. I let myself into my apartment around 10 p.m. Luna immediately appeared, meowing about the late dinner. After feeding her, I collapsed on my couch and finally looked at my phone. 17 text messages. 12 LinkedIn notifications. 4 missed calls. Priya, that speech. I recorded it. You were magnificent. Tom, 3 people asked for your contact info. Pretty sure you just became a legend. Kevin, I cried during your speech. Thank you. The LinkedIn notifications were connection requests from people at the event. And 1 email from an unfamiliar address. Subject: speaking opportunity. Dear Ms. Torres. My name is Dr. Sarah Kim, and I'm organizing the Creative Leadership Summit in Chicago this March. I attended the Vertex event tonight, and your speech was extraordinary. Would you be interested in being one of our keynote speakers? The topic would be building equitable creative cultures, attribution, recognition, and leadership. Best regards, Dr. Sarah Kim. A keynote. At a major industry summit. 6 months ago, I'd been invisible. I forwarded it to Kira. Is this real life? She responded immediately, this is real life. And you should absolutely do it. Rachel called as I was changing into pajamas. Tell me everything. I gave her the full recap: the speech, Janet's job offer, Marcus asking for help. He did not. The audacity. I know. It was almost impressive how he missed the point. So what's next? Are you done with the Vertex chapter? Yeah. Tonight felt like closing a book I needed to close. Not because I forgave them or everything's resolved, but because I've moved so far past that version of myself that going back isn't even tempting. Growth. I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I made tea and sat by my window, looking out at the Denver skyline. Somewhere in Austin, the party was ending. People would gossip about the speech, wonder what would happen to the company. But that wasn't my concern anymore. The next morning, I updated my personal website. Every campaign I'd created got its own page with original design files, strategy documents with timestamps, client testimonials. The TechFlow rebrand. Stellar Apps. Richardson Hotels. All of it. At the top of each page, created by Maya Torres, 2019 to 2024. Not contributed to. Created by. My name. My work. Finally together. I added a new section, on attribution and creative leadership. I wrote about Vertex, not as an attack, but as a case study. What happened? What I learned. What companies should do to prevent it. I included practical advice: how to document your work, how to recognize when credit is being stolen, when to speak up, when to leave. At the end, if you're experiencing something similar, you're not alone. Document everything. Know your worth. And don't be afraid to walk away from situations that don't serve your growth. I sent the link to Kira, Rachel, Priya, Tom. Within an hour, my website traffic jumped from 20 visitors a day to over 500. By the end of the week, 3,000 people were sharing it on LinkedIn, Twitter, forums. I got emails from creatives worldwide. Thank you. I thought I was the only one. Your advice helped me realize I need to leave. I started documenting everything because of your story. One email stuck with me. From a junior designer named Ashley in Seattle. I've been at my company for 2 years, and my creative director has been presenting my work as his own. I kept thinking I was too sensitive. But reading your story made me realize I deserve better. I documented 6 months of stolen work, resigned yesterday, and already have 3 interviews. Thank you for showing me that speaking up isn't career suicide, staying silent is. This was bigger than just my story now. 6 months to the day after leaving Vertex, Kira knocked on my door with a folder. The board meeting was this morning. We're expanding, which means we need a new position. She slid the folder across. VP of Creative Strategy. Equity package, seat at leadership table, full autonomy. I opened it. The salary made my eyes widen. Kira, this is what you've earned. In 6 months you've brought in 4 major accounts, mentored the team, raised our profile, and become a voice for workplace equity. This isn't charity. This is recognizing value. VP. Not senior designer. Not right-hand person. Not invisible. VP. With my name on it. With credit and authority and equity and respect. Can I think about it? Kira looked surprised. Of course. But is there a reason? No. I'm saying yes. I just want to sit with this moment for a second. I looked up. 6 months ago, I was overhearing my boss say I had no other options. Now I'm being offered VP at one of the best agencies in the region. You've come a long way. We've come a long way. You took a chance on me when others wouldn't have. After she left, I sat alone looking at the offer letter. Outside, Denver was bright and busy, full of people pursuing their dreams and fighting their battles. I thought about Maya from 6 months ago, scared and uncertain, wondering if speaking up would destroy her career. I wished I could tell her everything would work out. But maybe she already knew. Maybe that's why she'd been brave enough to send it. I texted Rachel, remember when you said good things would happen? I told you. Drinks tonight. We're celebrating. I opened my laptop. I had work to do, real work, creative work, work that would have my name on it. And for the first time in my professional life, that felt completely, perfectly normal. Not fighting to be seen. Just being seen. And building something meaningful with people who valued what I brought to the table. I'd spent 5 years invisible, hoping someone would notice me. Now I spent my days being exactly who I was, with no apologies and no compromises. And that made all the difference. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.